And after like going through this session, like e-Yantra competition, I got really attracted towards IoT. Like I have planned masters since I was in 10th standard, but then I got really attracted towards robotics and IoT. So now when I'm in third year, I've decided that I'll do my masters in IoT. Problem solving is very important in every aspect of our life. So every problem, how to deal with those problems, how to approach those problems, we experience this in this entire process of e-Yantra. This is a major learning for my entire life, not just MS, but for my entire life. Everyone should take part in this competition because first of all, even if you know little bit basic knowledge, everything can be learned. Even during the review sessions, the guide actually tells you like what should be your next approach, how should you attend the problem, what should be things that you should keep at later, like you should think about it later. They do help you in it, and even if you have a problem, you can mail them. So even if you have a basic knowledge, you should participate because all of these things help you to understand things. Even if you don't qualify the rounds, next time you can again participate with much more confidence. So I think experience is much important than winning.
last year I participated in e-Yantra idea competition. So it's basically an agribot. So this agribot, once I explained to an intern at CDAC, they were inspired a lot, and I got intern in CDAC, which is a Center for Development of Advanced Computing, which is central government. This year, this aquazone also seen by them, and they are pretty impressed, and they are also getting interest about e-Yantra and ELSA lab setup.
Last year, we also participated in EYIC 2019. In that, we went to the national finals, and during that time itself, we got exported to various technologies such as about Atman Studio and different kind of software we used. That gave me an basic idea for embedded engineering. So this got me internships at CDAC.
I first got placed in TCS like 2 months back. So the interview and all was really good because I started learning more things and learning more stuff after this program started to add to our project itself. So it had really helped me clear that interview too. They really asked me about any current project that I was working on. So it was in S7. So the only thing that I had was this one. So I talked really well about this, and they were really pleased with that. So I think that was one of the big reasons that I got placed, and I'm really happy that I was part of e-Yantra.
In my job interview, they asked about the projects that I have developed. In my resume, I have mentioned that I have done a project for the.
And welcome to yet another episode of Kavi's Corner. And today we have two very special guests with us. Professor Erkki Sutinen from the University of Turku of Finland. I wouldn't say in Finland because he's in the extension center of University of Turku, but in Namibia. And we met him last year at a conference in Indonesia, and since then we resonated very strongly. And we also have someone else with similar strong resonance, Professor Cheki Dorji from the College of Science and Technology in Phuentsholing in Bhutan, who again we met last year, and we'll say a little bit more about that as we go along. And as you know, this is a program which has evolved organically, and it's a program for the benefit of the e-Yantra community of young engineers and young innovators. It's a program that tries to bring a different flavor to their lives, which in India, I find that engineering education is pretty monochromatic and unidimensional, whereas engineers, like any others, need to have sustenance in the form of ideas from all walks of life. So this is one of e-Yantra's attempts to overcome and to add that important vitamin, if you like, or bunch of vitamins of extracurricular exposure into the lives of our young engineers who show a lot of promise. So without much ado, let me launch into today's program. I'd like to also welcome Professor Vinod Menon here, who you know from the disaster management program that is on at the moment, but we'll come to that also. So if Professor Erki can just unmute his video and audio while I introduce him formally. Right. The gentleman with a very colorful tunic is Professor Erkki Sutinen from the University of Turku. He's professor of computer science of interaction design, and he moved to Namibia in 2019 to set up the first overseas campus of University of Turku at the premises of UNAM, which is University of Namibia in Windhoek. And interestingly, he's done a PhD at the University of Helsinki based on research in string algorithms. Now, I'm very kind of curious about that. We'd like to ask him a bit about how far he's come from string algorithms. And he's founded a research group in educational technology, which is hosting online PhD program. He used to be the chief technical advisor of a very large Stifimo science, technology, and innovation program in Mozambique. Maybe he can speak a little bit about that also. But generally, he's researching on educational technology, computing education, and ICT for design and co-design. And that's why he takes particular interest in the activities of e-Yantra. He's advised about 30 PhDs and co-authored around 300 papers. But most important and most interestingly, he's also an ordained Lutheran priest with current interests which include digital theology of all things. So, welcome, Professor Erki, on board. And nice to have you here with us today. And we are hoping to learn more about your non computer science interests, because those are what seem to give you the color in life, apart from the tunic at the moment. So,
thank you so much. Thank you very much for the invite. Yeah.
thank you. I'd like Professor Cheki Dorji to unmute himself. He's a friend that we made in Bhutan a couple of years ago, and he hosted a very interesting program of ours last year. And might I say that he started his civil engineering education in India at REC Warangal, and from there he went on to do his PhD in, I believe, Germany, and he's the president of College of Science and Technology in Phuntsholing in Bhutan, and he's been part of the faculty there since 1998, and got his PhD in civil engineering, and interestingly in the area of landslide susceptibility susceptibility determination using GIS, which is what might make him very interested in the innovation challenge that we have now. He's a member of the Royal University Council. He's the editor of Bhutan Journal of Research and Development. He's a member of Academic Board of Royal University of Bhutan. And he's a focal person in the Erasmus Mundus project since 2006, where he's supervised almost 12, more than 12 projects. And his interests also include innovation and collaboration, which is what makes him especially interesting to us. So, without much ado, I'd like to get to our guests today. But before I start, let me just play a little or share with you a presentation which came out of our engagement in Bhutan. So, as you know, e-Yantra runs two competitions. One is a robotic competition which trains students at scale in robotics, and the other is an e-Yantra, what used to be called the ideas competition, where we used to encourage students who are trained by us to tilt against existing problems in society and to solve those with our help. We've been trying very hard to do that, hoping that startups will come out of it for the last 4 years or 5 years. But we find that we've not been able to hit that sweet spot in getting students to come up with startups because we hadn't got our act together. We believe that this year we actually have got our act together, so it should be very interesting to see what happens. So this year we've changed our brand to e-Yantra Innovation Challenge. And we did this because of a very interesting pilot that we did at the College of Science and Technology in Bhutan last year. Bhutan showed us the way, right? When we visited College of Science and Technology at short notice, Professor Dorji hosted us. We took 4 people along with us, Professor Vinod Menon, Kiran Deshpande, who's the ex-MD CEO of Tech Mahindra, Sumit Sen from our GIS lab, and Raghunath Iyer, who's a colleague who's a CTO in the networking space in industry. Along with them, we discovered over a 3-day workshop that we held in Bhutan that yes, students can come up with amazing ideas for innovation in disaster management technologies. Every one of the 7 teams that we engaged with came up with excellent ideas. And we realized that if we can harness this energy and mentor it to actually turn those ideas into reality, we might be onto a winner here. So this is totally consistent with what e-Yantra is interested in. So let me play a little bit of this presentation to share with you what excited us about Bhutan, College of Science and Technology, and the Bhutanese people. I'm going to share it. such that it becomes easier. I hope the video plays here. Optimize for motion and video. That's what I forgot. Do you see this?
Yes, yes.
So these are lessons from Bhutan, youth and disaster management. And do you see this? Do you hear this?
Yes, yes.
That was something that I'll let Professor Dorji explain to you, but let me complete my presentation first. So this was the team that went to Bhutan. There's Professor Vinod Menon, Professor Dorji, Sumit Sen on the left, and Kiran Deshpande in the middle. And these were the sessions that we had. And after that, we had a number of teams which came up with very good ideas. On the last day, the Consul General standing next to me, Ashish Midha, came thinking that it'll be a formality, spend 15 minutes and go home. And he spent almost 3 hours with us in appreciating what the students had done. They came up with wonderful ideas. Like this was an idea where you have wireless underwater pressure sensors to relay in real time the depth of rivers and lakes to predict floods. Actually, this is for GLOFs, glacial lake overflows, which cause a lot of damage. Bhutan has some 2,500 plus glacial lakes, which because of global warming, you have more meltwater and the lake waters rise and they might breach their banks and you have all sorts of issues. Another team came up with a beautiful app to warn people who want to travel about landslides along the way. Another team came up with idea of detecting disasters through monitoring of livestock, which was a very cool idea, and so on, right? And we had an amazing time, and we validated this whole idea that students can come up with really cool ideas in if you give them the right opportunity. And this was to address this whole issue, which applies to the entire developing world, where jobs are in short supply. Modern technology, AI, machine learning, automation is removing jobs, right? So we need to create a different mindset amongst our young people, in the sense that it needs to be an entrepreneurial mindset, because the government cannot create jobs. They have to create jobs for themselves. But the colonial kind of education that we've given our kids equips them with a kind of expectation at the end of the education that they'll be given a job. But we have economies which are growing very strongly in this region, especially in India, which is growing exponentially. It has a huge appetite for novel products and services. And each problem is an opportunity. So we have 1.3 billion people. So why don't we look at them as 1.3 billion minds which can engage in innovation? So what e-Yantra is doing and is endeavoring to do at scale, because we have huge scales here, is to create these innovation ecosystems. And all this is being done by a bunch of young people. There are about 40 people on the project from all parts of India, and we have a Nepali also here, and they are all just engaged in trying to bring out the potential of these young people. So this is what today's meeting is all about, is to share our experience and to pool our insights about what makes young people tick across the world. And I feel that because of the challenges of sustainability, we have no time. We have very little time to sort things out in the world, and we need to very quickly engage with the young people to help them solve these kind of problems. There cannot be one or two companies, global companies, which can solve all these problems. We want to equip our young people who are actually embedded in the problem, who are embedded in the opportunity, and motivate them to solve these kind of problems. So this is the language that e-Yantra speaks. And what e-Yantra is trying to do is it's trying to build a platform where young people can come together and solve these kind of problems. So I'd like Professor Dorji and Professor Erki to unmute themselves, and we'd like to hear more from them.
Okay.
So first of all, I'd like to ask Professor Dorji, right? What was that ceremony all about? Because this was the start of term, and something that really impressed us was on campus, you only allow the students to wear their traditional dress, which is beautiful because it encourages you to have a pride in your culture, a pride, a self-esteem in your culture, and expressing it. And that prayer was extremely haunting. And I believe you were right there on stage leading the prayers. So can you tell us what that was all about and what the purpose of this is?
Firstly, I would like to thank Professor Kavi and the e-Yantra team and Professor Erki and Professor Menon also to giving me this particular opportunity. When it comes to the prayer that you have seen just now in a short clip, it's basically the starting of the session prayer. Normally, our students, as they kick off the semester, they have that special prayers that goes on, and then followed by the alternate weekdays prayer. So the mass gathering that you saw just now is the commencement of a semester prayer that they would be conducting in that particular same hall, where there would be a tea session as a commencement of a semester, and then there is a special prayer that goes on to commence again a semester, and then it would be followed by alternate days prayer in the smaller groups. But the mass prayer is for everyone of the students as the commencement of the semester. There would be a special closing semester prayer again as a mass, where the faculties and the staff as well as students participate in a mass. Otherwise, it would be every alternate days the students will have the prayer. And then every Monday and Tuesday, we have the God of knowledge prayer, which we gather inside that same hall again. And then whatever announcements and other things that we have, we do announce in a similar process. So that's the thing that was happening. And then that prayer is basically the commencement prayer of that particular semester.
So Professor Dorji, what is the effect of this? Because we are used to a kind of secular environment where we kind of don't give, in fact, we shy away from these things in India. And I don't think it's well, I have no opinion on that at the moment. Let me not say anything. But what is the effect that it has on the students?
I think
do you believe?
Bhutanese by nature are brought up in that particular forum from their elementary school days onwards. And then what it basically reminds themselves is to remind them of who they are, actually trying to remind themselves and then trying to say that you are brought up in that way, and then you are trying to remind yourself who you are supposed to be. So those things are being chanted. The lyrics of that particular whatever prayer was there is something to do on the Lord Buddha's life history, actually. So it's basically the chanting of the life history of the Lord Buddha inside that.
Okay. So one thing I'll share with you, Erki, is that I found the Bhutanese students to be extremely uh, modest, humble. They have a very strong civic sense, and something that Bhutan shares with Finland is that its tremendous regard for education, in the sense that the two most favored and I believe paid professions, Cheki, correct me if I'm wrong in if I might call you that, but correct me if I'm wrong, in Bhutan is the medical profession and the teaching profession.
Teaching to certain extent, yes. Medical, obviously, yes. Teaching, uh, the government currently is trying to promote teaching by increasing the incentives of the teacher beyond certain percent compared to other professions. So from that angle, teaching is becoming more of the choice profession from that angle. But if you're saying, if all are interested to be teaching, then not almost 100% should be there as a wish for the teacher, which obviously I found through the readings that I have, little readings that I have made, Finland is able to achieve. Yeah.
So this is where the ball needs to be tossed to Erki. So Erki,
Yes.
Finland is known for the best education system in the world, as I believe it's called, or we are told. So what can you tell us about it? I mean, how is it different from other education systems that you have encountered?
Yes. No, this is a very good question. First of all, I think that, the teachership, being a teacher is very much like respected. It's very, very competitive also as a study place. It's very, very hard to become, and it's harder to become or study for primary school teacher than a secondary school teacher. So we get like very, very good students who are passionate about this. So I think that, and I think that also parents are respecting. It's widely respected. The salaries are not that high, so the incentive is not the salary. It's sort of like what I would say intrinsic motivation, and it's also because like teachers, if you compare like to African schools, for example. In African schools, the principal is actually the leader and the boss. But actually, in Finnish schools, it's actually individual teachers. So teachers are actually the masters of their own classes. There is nothing that the principal could come and intervene into their like ways. Also, the curricula are very flexible. We don't do. I mean, it's like within a very broad framework that teachers can do. For example, they can take mathematics class to a forest to learn mathematics. In the nature. And then we don't do this sort of national examinations. We sort of have like one national examination, which is the matriculation examination after grade 12. But that's the only, nationalist, examination. So it's not like examination oriented. It's more like, releasing the talents. And of course, there's a lot of like emphasis on special education, but in an integrated way. So that, you see that diversity matters. Diversity is not like, we talk usually about special needs education, but just the other day that I was visiting here, actually in Namibia, very good special school. So we were talking that rather special strengths education. So I think that, also Finnish education is very much like you want to identify like individual people's strengths. You want to have them to collaborate together, and this very open, approach to also, integrating, school studies to what happens in the surrounding society.
So, do you find that Finnish students are very distinct in their outlook from, say, a British student or a German student or a normal Scandinavian student? Is there a difference in the outlook as a result of that?
Well, it's hard to tell, but I think that my daughter is living in the UK, and it's kind of strange that they need really to think. I mean, the kid is like 3 years, will be 3 years. So already now they need to see like where actually should they live in order to get the kid into a nice school. Whereas in Finland, I mean, like all around in Finland, independently of the school, you basically learn in the same way. So it also means that like you have like the same opportunities. You don't have like disadvantaged schools or elite schools. And I think that it's maybe also because Finland is a small country. We need everyone. So everyone needs to contribute to the society. So it's very equal, egalitarian. And the downside is that we are not focusing that much on say talented students education. So then those who are talented in some certain areas, so they might not necessarily get all that support that is maybe happening elsewhere. Finland is, of course, it's a bit hard but I would say that, if you think of like university students who are coming, from the schools, I would say that, Finnish students usually are quite open-minded in their work. Of course, if we could recruit university students directly from Finnish primary schools, not secondary schools, we probably would get even better students to universities because, like the pedagogical approach in primary school is just excellent. So, and of course, I mean, one thing is that, which is, I think, very important for learning is that we also try to see like how students at different levels, from primary or secondary or vocational or whatever universities, how we could form these sort of groups or teams that would consist of kids at different levels. And how that would, we are still not yet there, but we are doing things in that area.
That's very interesting. So, coming back to this point, which we had advertised about innovation in the developing world, what is the major difference that you've seen between the kids that you have in Finland and the ones that you're encountering in Namibia as far as coming up with innovation and innovative ideas and all that go? What is the main, like in Finland, it is the whole ecosystem is geared towards innovation. Correct me if I'm wrong. You have companies like Nokia, which have been dominating the world for a long time, and okay, now it's a bit different. You still have lots of innovation, especially in engineering and all sorts of other areas which come out of Finland. What is it that you find is missing when you come to this part of the world?
Yeah, I think that somehow, I think that, in Namibia, many people are still like in a pipeline. So that, you first need to do like, this primary school and then the secondary school and then, study year 1, 2, 3, 4, and then apply to the masters or whatever. So it's kind of, you are in a pipeline. Whereas in Finland, I would say that, for example, if you think of computer science studies, many students maybe even never graduate because, I mean, graduation is not really the point. The point is learning. So, and it means that, even the first year students, or maybe they don't even come to the university after the school. So they might already start working with industry or set up their own companies. And we have a lot of funding instruments also with support, collaboration projects between industry and university. I think that, this sort of flexibility is something like, and maybe also somehow I was talking with the Finnish artist way back, and I was asking like, what's the uniqueness of Finnish art? She said that, it's because we don't have that much legacy or heritage in Finland. We are not bound to traditions or to maybe families also. I mean, you don't need to do what your parents did or what the establishment did. You can explore. I think that here in Namibia is that somehow people see that they need to do this and that. Also, maybe because of the society, because of the parents, there is still that sort of pressure, from the family. It's a little bit like pleasing also. Maybe something that I only recently saw that is this what we have in Namibia is fear to be rejected. So young students, very good students, they are afraid of coming up with their own ideas because they are afraid to be rejected by whoever is in authority. And I think that this sort of fear is something like it's and only I only see it now. It took my long time to see and understand it. So maybe there is a bit less fear, or then maybe there is a bit more like restlessness or revolutionary approach in Finland, something like you don't care. Maybe you can also say that because here you see a lot of respect, and respect is nice. But if respect goes too far, so it becomes kind of it becomes a game, and it's no more like that sort of respect for yourself. it becomes a little bit like superficial or something like that. Yeah. And maybe one thing I would like to add this also. Now there is this jacaranda season here. I mean, there are these beautiful trees that you can see blooming all around in Windhoek, like, purple flowers and everything. The other day I was talking about these jacarandas to my colleagues and also to my students, just to figure out that they have not really observed these trees at all. Not really at all. Some of the lecturer of UNAM said that, she has been living here for 10 years. She never ever paid any attention. She doesn't even know this jacaranda. So, because she always needed to run from one place to the next one and not exploring like what is around, what is here. And I think that, that's another thing that, like this observation, what you have somehow, and it's a very, very new observation for me also, but I need to work on this. Like, if you don't observe what are the all opportunities around, so you only like follow what others have, supported you to observe, and then you don't even observe the opportunities to innovate, or you think that it's only the demand that is now there, but you are not seeing like the opportunities for maybe new demand. Sorry for a very long answer.
No. Erki, you made several very important points which I'd like to just explore. One is that you said the fear of authority. Fear of
Yes.
authority happens when there's a very strong hierarchy. And,
Yes.
and that hierarchy is endemic in this part of the world. It's there in India, it's in the developing nations, Southeast Asia, and so on. Too much of a fear and over much respect for authority. Now, it never used to be like this all through the ages, right? And it's quite interesting that years ago we did a research project with the EU to monitor or to measure the innovation quotient of Indian software companies. And we found this was with the University of Copenhagen Business School, and we found that in whichever software companies there's a very strong hierarchy, there's very little innovation, and wherever there's no hierarchy, there's a lot of innovation. What you observed is a societal thing, because when you have hierarchy, too much respect for your boss or your seniors or for authority, you cannot innovate because you're always waiting to be told what to do.
Yes.
And there's a fear of innovation, and also because of this scarcity of opportunities, because there are not enough jobs, because the populations are so huge. There's a very strong fear of failure, which leads to a very conservative mindset. That means that you take the first job you can get in your hands and stick to it for the rest of your life, and that's the end of the story. And there's this overmuch fascination for security. Like in India, it used to be fashionable at one time. Now I'm happy to be corrected by our young friends here who are also with us on this call. There used to be an overmuch fascination for bank jobs. Bank jobs are very secure jobs, but they are known to be very boring jobs, right? But bank jobs are disappearing. I've never been to a bank for many years. Everything is online. Okay, so technology is really overturning many jobs. Okay, so what used to be secure at one time is not secure anymore. But unfortunately, their parents don't know that, and their parents are still a figure of authority. Something else, parents are kind of forcing kids to take up their own profession. Like, for instance, many of the parents have shops, for instance, which are just trading. And they have a young child who's very talented, computer scientist or an engineer. And they say, okay, fine, that all is very good, but you come and sit in the shop, and that's the end of the story. And the person will lose the opportunity of exploring the potential which is available in this modern world, especially because internet has made the world a very small place. Okay, so this fear of authority is something very important that you mentioned, which undermines innovation. Okay, so I'd like to just toss this to Cheki. Is this the same in Bhutan? Because you have this tremendous respect for authority and seniors there, and in order to innovate, it's good to have a healthy disrespect for authority. So how do you deal with that?
Thank you, Professor Erki, for bringing up this particular pertinent point here to the discussion. I do, to a certain extent, I, for one, is the promoter of to doing away with hierarchy. And what I had been promoting as of now is to work under the eye of the third eye. And that's the motto that I have. And then I had been tossing this along till this date. And then to a certain extent, as Professor Erki said, I, again, for that matter, Bhutan, to a certain extent, I also to candidly blame for the free education system that we have that's being offered to bring in innovation is one thing that I also candidly admit here could be one of the reasons. And then I had been even discussing with some of our students here. So when it comes to the hierarchy, to certain extent, I from internal, that's my personal own opinion, I was thinking in the similar line as Professor Erki rightly shared just now, could be one of the ways, because we had been promoting in one way or the other, thinking that we could promote something as a technical college, only technical college in Bhutan here. And then one way or the other, we are bringing the experts from abroad if we don't have experts here. And then we had been bringing the industrialists from within Bhutan and also from India. And then the passion that is shown by our students is still lacking at this point of time. Could be environment to a certain extent, I believe, but what to the idea of innovation that we see abroad and then the innovation back in Bhutan, it's a little bit different. That's what I was saying. And could be because, as Professor Erki said, hierarchy in the matter, or we have free education, or they are not wish they have no means to bother at this point of time because everything is being provided by the government. That's the candid explanation I give to my students, even to at this level.
Okay.
That's what I feel sometimes. Yes.
Okay. But I'd like to notice one more thing. In fact, I'd like to toss this as a point amongst you. We had some very interesting talks with the interns, and one of the talks was by our colleague at IIT Bombay who teaches English literature. And she sees most engineers as Philistines. Right? Because it is very true that our education is very unidimensional. It's just something you do to get a job, and that's the attitude which is kind of that you imbibe. And her point was, why should you study English literature? Why should you study literature? Why should you study art and humanities and stuff like that? And she brought a very, very important element into the discourse. She said it's to create a spirit of empathy. And then we realized that that's really what is missing in our not only engineering education, but all of education. Education seems to be something which is artificially put inside you, and then you kind of impose yourself on the world. Whereas an engineer, we've always believed, is somebody who solves societal problems. For somebody to solve societal problems, they need to have empathy. Now, I feel that empathy is the big elephant in the room, which is being ignored or not noticed or not accepted. And I feel this increasingly amongst our engineers because they think in a very transactional way. And what the world needs most of all now is people with empathy, because this generation of people who don't have empathy have really screwed up the planet. In fact, this I noticed when I spent a stint with Mahindra and Mahindra, which is a very large conglomerate in India, in 2007. And my main contribution there was to have included sustainability in the discourse of corporate strategy. I was the chief technology officer there for 1 year. I went on Leon from IIT Bombay. And Anand Mahindra, who headed the company at that time, sent me to a wonderful forum in Sweden called the Talberg Forum, which is like the Davos of sustainability. And a bunch of engineers, artists, poets, scientists European Parliament legislators and presidents of countries, all invitees, come together under one roof and discuss how on earth we can live together. And after that, I came back with a very strong sense that sustainability is the elephant in the room which people are missing out on. And we need people who can respond to the challenges of sustainability. And our existing mechanisms in society cannot do anything about it. It creates more and more divisions between countries. Me versus you. It's not us together because the planet belongs to all of us. If you are screwing up your rainforests in the Amazon, it's screwing us in the rest of the world. But there's no platform which tries to bring people together. There are more and more ways of bringing walls, and the capitalist system has been responsible for that. So anyway, to cut my long rant short, right? Do you see any purpose in this way that engineers have to have some ways of cultivating empathy? So, Erki, I'll toss this to you first.
Okay, me first, or?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I really like this, because in interaction design, we also talk about, this empathy-based design, so that, like when you really want to do something new, which makes sense, which is sustainable, you really need to understand, you need to be able to work with people. For example, there was one PhD thesis that, I was reviewing for University of Pretoria, and they created, it was done in Zimbabwe, in Harare, with young mothers and, newborn babies. And, they wanted to create, some technology for that. And of course, usually you think you do an app which starts like, for example, the name and the address of the mother. But the mother said that no mother in Zimbabwe would be so stupid to give her like a real name and street address, because then that would come up with an invoice, for this treatment. So then, what, the group started with, they actually started, the mothers to submit like their diaries, from the time just before giving the birth and after that, and then, the first design session between the mothers and the designer started with reading aloud, these diaries. And they started by crying because they really understood like what are the challenges in the mothers and babies' life in Harare. So, it was a very strong, emotionally also very strong and, way to empathize. Just, 2 days ago, I managed to go with three of my Namibian students to this special education school here in Windhoek. And it was quite amazing that, like I was greeted, by a 3-year-old boy who is like completely inverbal. So he's an autistic. And usually autistic kids, they don't really come close. He hugged me, from the very outset. We have never been before. He wanted to be in my lap for the 1.5 hours that, we were at the school. And then little by little, he wanted me also to communicate because he could communicate. I was more like autistic. And, he took my hand and showed that these are the toys that he works with. And now we are going to actually, the school invited us to actually position the 3 students to actually be there at the school, co-designing new technologies for autistic kids, for kids with different kind of challenges. And that of course only can be done by empathy from both sides. And I'm very excited also of the empathy that, the students would get from the kids, like I was hugged by this young boy. And so I think that it's like you learn empathy by experience, and I think that, we should really expose students, while they are studying, to environments where they not only go like for a day or a few hours, but they actually share, life with them. And I think that, if we could do this between the countries, so that we could get a kind of, set of real life environments and, students working with these real life environments and then sharing together. So we could also create that sort of like cross-cultural or cross-cultural empathy with people that, we are designing new solutions to, something like that. So thanks for raising up this empathy. I think there is a lot that we can do. Now, Kavi, I can't hear you. I think you are muted.
Okay. to make it a bit easier for Cheki, I'll play a little video that we made in Bhutan, and maybe then he can respond to what that video is all about. So let me just go to this. Do you see it and do you hear it?
Yeah.
Benefit for all. In Zongpa, it's Kinfen Sokpa. At the commencement of the semester, we plan for the whole semester, whereby the central aim of the club remains to visit a remote school, and for that we plan budget, and then to meet the demand of the poor and needy students back there. Every semester we visit at least one school. We get these ideas from our lecturers, or maybe friends and families, or where they might have been. We interact with the teachers, even sometimes with their parents, and then see what they need to actually. In the remote school in Lingden, their parents were not really in a position to afford them school dress. There were students who couldn't afford even blankets and mattresses. At the beginning of the semester, when the college is yet to start, we go around picking up the waste paper and then selling them. We get a certain amount, and then with that amount we try to use it in some other business like cultural events, and then other college events. We put food stalls and all, through which we generate some more amount. Actually, in a semester, we have around 16 Saturdays and Sundays. During those weekends, many of the events are held during those days. So we try and manage our time and then put in a lot of effort. Not just me, my whole team works together and then try to make this event happen. And most of the time when events are held, most of us don't sleep at night. So we work for entire night, and then next day we have to continue to maybe sell the products. Mr. Rajesh Suvedi is the best person I know. He founded this club to benefit the people around and then keep our students morally active. The happiness that we get when we see needy people smile, and then when they get aid from somewhere they don't expect, they have a typical kind of smile on their face, which gives us utmost satisfaction, which is beyond words. So just for that we do, sir.
So, Cheki, would you like to explain that?
Yes, this is one of the club activities that the college has with the student, and then student come up with various club activities by themselves. This is one of the social club that one of the faculty founded it way back, and then now it's for the benefit of the needy. This society, this particular club activities, as he can rightly mention, there are lots of activities that they try to do within a semester apart from the academic schedule that they have. Be it, as he said, there could be some event where they try to, because they have to generate their own money. College doesn't support any money for them. So they have to generate their own money to sustain, and then they try to identify every year some needy schools. At this point of time, they have targeted the schools. In the interior part of Bhutan, we do have schools where the parents are not able to sponsor their kids, even the basic necessity for their kids. So they try to identify with the help of the the head of the school there. And then we do receive applications from the school. Based on that criteria, the club members led by the faculty, they identify which school could be the prioritized school for that particular year, because they will be able to, at the max, support only 2 schools in a year. So from that activities, they try to generate that particular money within the year, and then whatever is the need of that particular school, they go along with that particular commodities, be it sometimes even the basic toothbrushes, and then the shoes or the dresses or the books or the bags or the blanket or the mattresses. Based on the need of that particular school, they try to generate that particular money, and then they just go. Transportation and other logistic we try to facilitate, and then the students take responsibility to help the needy in that way. So whatever activities that they are doing in a form of some dramatic dramas here, and then the food stall, and then selling of the waste, and then collecting the waste books, even where their friends would be throwing at the end of a day, they just try to dump it and sell across the border. And then there could be old mattresses, which they might, if it is reusable, they just try to clean it off and then just give it to the needy in that particular fashion also sometimes. But having said this, they are one of the active member in the college to support the needy at this point of time. And then there are other members who does it, but not as active as they are as an instituted club members here. So this is the event is still continuing. Yeah.
So tell me, Cheki, what is the effect of participation in this kind of activity on the student themselves? I mean, how does it affect the student?
Very good question, Professor Kavi. This I found because students who had come from an affluent family and from urban area have not really seen the rural life. That's the impression I got from some of the students who had gone, because the schools that we are talking here would be really rural, very rural. Sometimes the transportation might take you to the roadhead, and then from there you might have to walk half a day. Schools would be there. So from that angle, as they go there, live with them for at least one night. It's mandatory that they have to spend one night with those type of students, and then see the livelihood that they have at this point of time. That was really touching as they came and shared with us. And then it has really given an impact to them, saying that I am better off than those. And then how could I help those needy at this point of time? Is the sharing that most of them made after they returned back from such a trip. So those were the impact that I had seen, because after going there, they will have to come back and share some of their impressions and the impact that they had. And then the leaders will obviously share for semesters activities for that particular club. But as they return, there will be few members who would be sharing to all the masses here. So in that way, that's how I learned. Yeah.
But Cheki, you know, I would admit as an employer and as a faculty, if I had a choice between a student who does this kind of thing and does this kind of thing, I would definitely go for a student who participates in these activities, because I would feel that any organization that I run, they will nurture the organization in the same way, especially if the organization is aligned with their value system. And I think all of us need more of these kind of people in society. We should be grooming them to do more of this work. So now what I'll do is that I'd like Erki to respond to this, but I'd like our friends on if you like, virtual studio with us to unmute themselves. And I'd like them to also be free to ask questions that they want. And Professor Menon, right, it'll be nice if you unmute yourself also. So Erki, what is your reaction to this? And what do you feel that this thing could be kind of mainstreamed and it would fulfill a certain purpose? You're muted.
Yeah, I think that very much so, because, you know, if you think of like also industrial design, you know, which is in the background of also software design. So in Europe in 1920s, you know, we had this movement called Bauhaus. where people were really even living together. It was like, designing in community, designing like industrial things, which passed the real life test. And now, just a week ago, the president of the European Union said that actually we should do another Bauhaus movement, actually now to cope, with all these new challenges and problems that we have, like at the global level also. And it's like, it's not only learning by doing, but it's also by learning by being, learning like by being together. And that's very deeply rooted also to this African, philosophy of Ubuntu, sharing the humanness, like that we are all together. And like with us, we have now, planned to do like, in Africa we talk a lot about this fourth industrial revolution. Maybe in Europe we use more like the word digitalization. But anyway, like how AI would actually, improve the livelihoods of just, people at the grassroots. So, we are going now to go to 3, ethnic groups here and, work with them like maybe for a week or so that, our students would actually be living, in these communities. And we want to get like, their understanding and, like how they would see that this fourth industrial revolution would also revolutionize people's lives, in rural areas or in remote areas, just ordinary lives. And I think that this is challenge both ways. It's challenge for the communities, but it's also challenge for the students because it forces students and researchers to think what really is demanded and how engineering can prepare, us for a better life. So I mean this I was very impressed, by Checkys organizations, work, with people. I think that's where the real new things come and also the real new demands because we were talking that people think that okay there are already others who supply things for the demands but demands are endless. We just need to discover the demands and we discover the demands when we are sharing life together. So that's very beautiful. I understand that Bhutan has also been ranked as the most happy country in the world, in these happiness rankings. And I think that this is the way, like I think that it reflects, the values. And was very excited. And I think that if we could do this somehow together, over different countries, and like create this sort of like presence and empathy, as I was saying, cross-culturally. It's even like one of my colleagues wrote this book on Peace Machine, like how to use AI to promote understanding beyond the diversity and using the diversity. So, but we only learn that, when we are in real life situations, solving the challenges. Thank you very much. Very impressive. I even said that this kind of, instant of loving engineering, it's engineering by love. And I think this is something that, we can talk about empathy, but even maybe more, we should talk about love. Thank you.
Erki, I'd like to just point out here that we have young Kavya on this call. And remember, I showed you this? The name of this is called Meraki.
Yes.
Right? Meraki. So Kavya came up with this name. It's a beautiful word which has a Greek origin. Right?
Ah, yeah.
Meraki means serving something to a community with love.
Okay, yes. Okay, so can you imagine? Yes, beautiful.
So Erki, you resonate very strongly with our value system. In fact, the whole thing about having you guys here on the occasion with us is that we like to believe that in e-Yantra again is co-created by all the young people who are on the project. I feel that there's a need for people across this region to come together in innovative ways. And especially the way we can help is like in Bhutan, you might have some very bright kids who can engineer some really good products. But Bhutan itself is not a market which is big enough to absorb them. So they should be collaborating with their friends in India to explore markets. So I'm hoping that e-Yantra will become a platform where young people can create solutions to the massive screw-ups that the elders like us have engineered across the world, right? Where they come together, engage with each other to solve problems. Similarly, in Namibia, you might have some bright kids. We've spoken to Lenny, and we were quite impressed. And there are others like him who might come up with some cool ideas which could have applications in Bhutan or in India or in Malaysia and Bangladesh and stuff like that. So traditionally, it was only the privileged students in our countries which could go abroad and engage with people from other cultures. And after spending a lot of their parents' money or on scholarship, so very few people had the opportunity to do that. But now we feel that with the internet, it makes it possible to have this discourse across a very wide swathe of humanity. And the fact that someone from Finland can be engaging with people from India and Bhutan is it speaks volumes for what is possible. So without much ado now, I'd like to let the youngsters at you folks. So I'm going to sit in the background, and if you guys have any questions to ask our friends here, I'll be happy to hear them myself. So over to you folks. And they can ask you also, for that matter. They can ask you about your student lives and what kind of lives you guys lead.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening, Professor Erki and Professor Cheki Dorji. I am Ritu, and I've been a part of the e-Yantra robotics competition of last year, and I was also fortunate to be a part of the internship, which was in the summer of this year. I actually had a doubt that, like a small question, that like as being a student, we definitely sometimes do get some innovative ideas and everything, but as much as it is important for us to think about things and have innovative ideas, it is also important that we have a good team around us, so that like together we are able to materialize that particular thought of ours, or that innovation or that creativity. Like at least the only reason that I was able to come this far was that I was fortunate enough to have like-minded people around me, like who were interested in robotics and such things, and so we together formed a team and like competed and came here. But many times it also happens, and I've seen this previously with myself and my friends also, that sometimes students do not get like-minded peers around them, and so whatever innovation they have thought of is not able to materialize. So what can such students like us do in such a scenario when we do not have like-minded people around us?
Okay, yeah. Okay, Cheki, Professor Cheki first, or?
Cheki, you're muted.
Thank you, Ritu, for the concern that you have raised. I think we do have similar problems back in Bhutan too, where some of our students ask the same questions to us. And then I, for one, at this point of time, what I had been requesting our faculty as well as all the students is, I think for us, is to create an awareness as a manager to lead those particular team, by saying that there are opportunities at that particular level if you are taking that particular journey. So that's how we facilitate, number one. And then when I can give you one example where we had the startup weekends held twice a year, every year at our college, be it at the college level and the national level. And then what has happened is there was a guy from very really rural area towards the border of China. There is a small village there. And then he was so desperate to find a means to churn a milk and get butter out of it, because they have lots of yaks up there, it seems. And then that's his idea to really help his village to locally fabricate that particular churning machine to that particular community is an idea that he has conceived. And then he was so passionate. I could find out from the start of weekend as I was going around. And then he was all alone there trying to solve that particular problem. He had his friend, but his friend has not known the problem that he was encountered with and has faced. And then I was trying to explain them. And then as an engineer, I was telling them, you draw this in a 3D or try to give this idea in a form that your friends will understand, because that also matters sometimes. And what happened at the end is he is so passionate that he took on this particular journey, competed at our college level, he got first, and he went to the national level at the Bhutan level. He stood first again. And then from there, he went to Bangkok. Again, he was all alone. He couldn't get his friend because he was not able to convince his friend in that way. And then again, from Bangkok, he flew to Toronto, and currently he is in Toronto. So Ritu, for you as an example, I think that particular passion, because sometimes I can candidly tell you, there were instances in the past where students were coming with the grievances saying that we have lots to do at our hand, at our disposal. And then the academic pressure is there, being an engineering college, again, lots of pressure. And then we are not able to cope up with this. But there are, again, students who had managed to cope up, and then they were out, I think, as Professor Kavi would agree, and then we had been sharing the same thing. Those who are outshining, they outshine everywhere. So that leads in, and then I could just now tell and inform you that I think if you are not able to find them, convince them. If at all you're not going to get them, you just promote as a leader in the front and then try to drive those motions. I think that really helps. That's an experience from CST, but per se. Yes.
Thank you so much, sir.
Yeah.
Ritu,
Thank
that's
you
a
very much.
universal story. Erki.
Yes. Yeah. Thanks, Prof. Cheki, for these insights, and thanks to Ritu for this very, very exciting question and important question. Actually, I have been recently talking with a couple of my students here in Namibia about this sort of mindset or like-mindedness, if you will. And it turns out that like when you talk with students, so you see that they have a lot of aspirations, a lot of ideas, and I think that most probably most of the students would have these ideas, that it's just that somehow the system sort of oppresses most of, especially the more shy students, to express or even understand themselves, that actually they would have ideas, and they would have like ideas like insights and innovations and inventions. They're just so shy to to sort of express these things. I think, like just the other day, I was working with my colleague on a paper on mindsets, and there are like mindset actually means, like, for example, mathematical mindset means that or mindset in mathematics means that what is my mindset about my abilities in mathematics, and you have like two different kind of mindsets. You have like fixed mindset or growth mindset, and if you have this fixed mindset, you think that you have a certain understanding of yourself, and that never can change. You might think that your mindset in mathematics is that you are not good at mathematics. You never can grow in mathematics. Or creativity mindset, you are not creative because you can't draw or you can't play, so you are fixed. So I think that as universities, we should also actually work a little bit on helping students to go from this fixed mindset towards growth mindset. So that's, I think, maybe one of the key things, and growth mindset actually means that you focus more on you more on what you are, rather than just transferring knowledge or skills. This is also what Harari says. Harari says that in the to train students for the future, it's more important to learn yourself. And I think that Prof. Cheki already was referring to this. It's important to learn yourself. And learning yourself is that sort of you discover or uncover yourself. So it's a long process. And I think that it's very important that we have students also to challenge each other. I think that as universities we need to build an environment where it's easier for students, and they also would have more time, because many students are very stressed. They are stressed with demands of this sort of formal qualifications. So they don't have opportunity to learn themselves and also learn what they really like or have aspirations for. So Ritu, this was very, very important question, and I would encourage you also to find this sort of like-mindedness in your peer students that they might not even be aware of, but it is there, and I encourage you to just help them to discover themselves.
Thank you. Thank
Thanks,
you so much,
Ritu.
sir.
Vinod, any observation that you have? You're muted.
I just wanted to compliment Kavya and her friends, for the Meraki, the compilation of all the items which are put together in that journal. That I think will be a souvenir. It will be something which will be very useful for the next batches also. I had one question to Professor Erki and also to Professor Cheki. One first question to Professor Erki is that since we have both Ritu and Kavya here, the UN observed the International Day of the Girl, and Finland was a country which actually is run by the youngest head of state in the world. So you have the Prime Minister, who is the youngest Prime Minister in the world, who is 34-year-old. She invited a 16-year-old girl to be Prime Minister for a day. Okay, and so she had this young girl, 16-year-old girl, who was made the Prime Minister for a day, and she met with all the cabinet ministers. So you can imagine what kind of empowerment she would have felt, and also the message which was conveyed to the rest of the country and to the rest of the world was really phenomenal. The way in which you can actually get the energy from young people and feel refreshed. I see that also in you, the passion which you are actually showing, teaching in Namibia, but you are talking also about digital theology, and issues like that, talking about empathy. I think the world needs that now, going through COVID now in many parts of the world. So I thought that, the Finnish example was very good. And then Professor Cheki, you are from a country which has got, 770,000 people. Okay. And for such a country with such a small population, getting, good education, good healthcare, good social welfare, good social protection is really very useful using technology and innovation. So do you think that, it will be possible for you to come up with several models which will be useful for the rest of the world using technology and innovation? Who would like to take
maybe
it? Yeah.
Okay, so maybe I just thank Prof. Vinod for this encouragement, to sort of also believe more and more in the Finnish, I would say, flexible model of how the society actually and then also the learning should work. I think that maybe we also in Finland we believe in some sort of functionalism, that the structures or the hierarchies are not that important, or what we have brought from earlier generations. It's actually like just to see like how we can organize ourselves to do things in a new way. But also like when I think of relocating from Finland actually here to Namibia, I can learn also so much like from young people here. Like I mentioned, this 3-year-old kid in the special strength education, as I would say, like the energy that and like the empathy and love that I get from there, very inspiring. And like this inspiration sort of exceeds all these sort of barriers of organizations or governments or whatever, because you see that you need to get things done. But also when I think of like, Kavi knows Lani, who is here, and he has been telling me about like what is the students, not only like, like what is the student life here, but what are also like his desires, what are his like concerns. I mean, this requires time. This requires time because, and also trust, and I'm very happy and I'm sort of honored for, these young people to actually tell me what their aspirations, what their desires are. Because I mean, if we don't know this, we can never change, the world. So I think that, but I think that also, like, again, like coming back to this, I think that, we may need to use this technology to allow for more of these interactions with people, and people from different backgrounds. Like, I mean, the acting prime minister, like the 16-year-old girl, from Finland, can work with someone else, from here, and like whatever, and this is the way to get like inspired, and also to believe in that we can change the world for better. I think that like what Prof. Kavi and his team and all of you have launched now, and open up your kind of environment, extend the invite to people like me, to be part of this. I'm very, very honored, and this has been amazing. So thanks a lot, and we'll continue along these lines.
Thank you. Thank you, Erki. Cheki, you're muted right now.
Thank you, Professor Menon, for the question that you have asked. If you are talking in terms of the really hardcore innovation, I think Bhutan will have to admit that we won't be able to compete with the rest of the world in terms of the hardcore innovation per se. But if you're talking of some of the models which are working, and then which I feel to my level is working fine, especially at this point of time, even during the COVID times, I think we are proud enough to say that we are doing really wonderful and fantastic job at this point of time. If you are saying volunteerism, I think there are people working across the day and night, currently guarding the porous border between India and Bhutan from the day that there was massive uprising of COVID numbers, patient numbers along the border. So we decided to seal the border, and it's currently sealed also. And then since March onwards, we had been manning by our volunteers. And if you're talking of volunteerism, I think the king himself has shown and demonstrated at this point of time that he is committed to serve the people. And for one, what he has been advising as of now is, we are poor, but we don't mind getting poorer by spending that much for the benefit of the people who are affected by COVID at this point of time.
Right.
It's easy to get money than to save one person's life. So better we spend and invest on the lives of the people is the concern that he has given from the day one. And then the government, as of now, had been working tirelessly day and night to protect the lives of the people here. So from day one, what we have done in terms of COVID is, if you're talking, as I said, volunteerism, everybody came in and out. I was there almost for 2 months, guarding the border between the Indian border and the Bhutan here. Almost for 2 months, I was there outpost in that particular during day and night in the shift wise. And then still it's being continued. Right. And what people at this point of time like is, I think when the concern is being raised from the highest level, people really take to the core of their heart by saying that we have to do this. And then next thing is, I don't know whether you all have heard or not, we are poor, but all the provisions as of now for COVID patients is given free again by the government. Yes. So quarantine facilities for 21 days is free. Testing, everything is free. And then if you're seeing the draining of the money to those, I think, where are we keeping the people who are coming now? Formally, they can come in and officially they can go out. There is a protocol that's being maintained. And I think Bhutan, as of now, in terms of COVID, I think we are following one of the most stringent measures that's being implemented. Even at the college level, we are in a self-contained zone, and then we are made to follow very strict protocol for our students and the faculty to teach, both online as well as in campus, face-to-face. So now, when it comes to COVID, how we have managed to cater the people who are traveling back and forth, inside and outside, through the mandatory thing. What they are supposed to be doing is, with the help of the protocol, if they have taken due measures, they are taken in and then kept in at least in 3-star hotels. And then at this hour, what we are doing in our place here, I was told the menu has been compromised compared to other regions, at least, because other regions, especially in the Western region, who comes from abroad, their menu, I think they have their wish and the choice of the menu from the hotel. And that's how the hotel restaurants are made to survive from that. And the government pays for that in terms of the money. So all expenditures are borne by the government. And then as of now, whoever are, we do not qualify by nationality. If it is the need of an hour, government bears that particular responsibility. And each organizations take due care for our faculty. For example, we have faculties who are coming from outside because their parents have expired and then they wanted to enter. We facilitate, government facilitate, and then that's how they get in at this point of time. But it's mandatory that all will have to go 21 days quarantine. That's being taken care by the government. So
we have a lot to learn from you, Professor Cheki, actually. And one is about the carbon negative Bhutan. The carbon negative Bhutan also is very, one of the best lessons in biodiversity, and also, something which we have to learn from you.
When it comes to carbon negative, I think our government, by our constitution, it's regulated that we have to at least give 60% forest cover. That's imprinted in the constitution. But as of now, if you go by the forest cover, it's almost 72%. We have managed to keep at least 72% as of now. And then if you're talking of the regulations that's there inside the National Environmental Commission, I was being told for any projects, I think this could be one of the most stringent regulations that they will have to encounter with to get through in that particular, in terms of protocol. So from that angle, if you're looking in, I think this is the brainchild of our fourth king, who thought during those days, we don't have anything. We have natural reserves in means the forests. We have to protect forests because this is the lungs for the earth, and then we have to protect. And then he has envisioned this to be protected, and then we all help to protect at this point of time in whatever ways. And then there is a very interesting phenomena where if you're talking of in terms of glacial outbursts, which took place long time back, now in order, because there's imminent danger that one of the lake will burst one day. And the scientists and the geologists had hard time now to lower that particular embankment because there was almost 99% that it will break one day. Now, the issue was we could have done it through some mechanized form of doing things, but government chose not to do that because it was manually done. Too laborious. I could feel that it was done over 3 winters, very stringent and harsh environment, but people went there and then served, and then we managed to reduce that particular level. And then that's, I think, one demonstration to the other parts of the world that there are so many highs of the technology available, but if you bring in technology, there are some distractions coming in. But by doing physically and doing manually, I think to a certain extent, those distractions are being mitigated. And then that's how, as a precautionary measure, that we do. So from all that sense, from the model that we are from people per se, and as well as a human being, we would have some models to portray. But if you're talking in terms of technology-wise, we might not have that much hi-fi technology to showcase to the other parts of the world. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's entertain one question, then I'd like to close because I think we've learned a lot today and we've gone over time, but it's been absolutely worth it. If there is a question, we'll leave the floor open for one more from either the assembled group or from outside. Suprabha?
Yes.
Sir, we do have one query on Instagram.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll just
Yeah, would you?
read out. Yeah.
Yes.
What should young engineers do in a developing country like India, and what are the sort of roles that students can play? So this we had received on Instagram. So if
Will you
anyone,
repeat that again?
so what should young engineers do in developing country like India, and what sort of roles can we play?
Okay, that I shall pose to Professor Menon.
Actually, young engineers have a lot to do in terms of learning from the examples which was shown from Bhutan. You can actually empathize with the people, their concerns, their problems, poverty, unemployment. Find solutions. You can be very innovative in terms of trying to approach a problem and trying to look for solutions. And by reaching out to the community and by serving community in your neighborhood, you might be able to come up with very good replicable models. And that's what Professor Erki was also suggesting, and also what Professor Cheki has also shown. Young people can actually take the responsibility to be the change they want to see. Like what Gandhiji had said, if you can be the change you want to see, you will be able to come up with innovative solutions. There are a lot that can be done. Over to you.
Thank you, Vinod. That is very, very eloquent. And I'd like to just share a little story before we close. The one of the top management gurus of the world, Peter Drucker, was asked many years ago as to what should be the qualities of what should be the qualification of a chief executive, CEO of an organization. I wonder, Erki, if you know about this. Okay, he was asked what should be the qualifications of the CEO of an organization. And some people asked whether he should be an accountant, a chartered accountant, whether he should be a lawyer, whether he should be an engineer, whether he should be a PhD, or should he be a person trained in the humanities, or what should be the qualification of a CEO? And his answer was very interesting. He said he should be a man of the cloth. He should be a man of the cloth. In other words, a priest, or should have the qualities of a priest, which is so important in today's world. In fact, I like to believe that e-Yantra uses robotics as a vehicle, but it's not only about robotics, it's not only about engineering, it's about much more deeper values which we are trying to inculcate and encourage in the people that we touch. Many of those ideas have been come out and brought explicit by our very distinguished guests here today on the show. Like, for instance, the ideas that we've been touched with today: train students for the future. Now, what does that mean? Train students for the future. It doesn't mean make them, teach them only engineering and nothing else, because just engineering turns you into a technician. We don't want more technicians. We want leaders. We've always maintained. So by training them in India, it's particularly meaningful because half our population is below the age of 24 or 25. That means there's a huge energy of young people out there which needs to be channeled correctly. How do we do it? The answers have come from our guests. Removing barriers, using technology to create more avenues for interaction across the region, remove the barriers between engineers in different countries, make them feel that the world is actually one place. Sustainability demands that the world is one place and we look at it as a planet that we've inherited. Discover yourself. Don't be what other people want you to be, because then you can never live a life of passion. You can only be passionate about something that you've discovered inside. In fact, our education system, as Professor Dorji said, is a pipeline. Or is it Erki who said that? It's a pipeline. It doesn't, the emphasis is not to discover yourself. It's to just train you up in some skills based on what your parents thought were fit for you generally. Discover yourself is very, very important. Self-esteem is the foundation of anything that we do with innovation, because unless you value your own self, you cannot value your ideas, right? So we should have a community which encourages self-esteem and self-respect. And the way Professor Dorji has done it in the College of Science and Technology is by encouraging the students to respect where they have come from, right? By the culture that they come from, the religion that they have inherited, right? Whatever they have, by being proud. Proud is a very strong word. Appreciating what you have is what self-esteem is all about, and having respect for what you have and where you come from is very, very important, because without that, you cannot have innovation. Then most important above everything is empathy. So when Peter Drucker said, right, the CEO should be having the qualities of a priest. So what are the qualities of a priest? In fact, it's not a coincidence, Erki, that we called you here and you've not spoken about yourself being ordained as a Lutheran pastor, if you like. The qualities of a priest is that of a shepherd, keeping the community together, thinking about the community first, right? With the spirit of service, which Professor Dorji has also illustrated in his college through Benefit for All and these kind of institutions that they have. So empathy, lack of hierarchy. In the East, we have too much of a hierarchy. Professor Dorji has also expressed how he's trying to break that by making students, making the faculty more approachable to the students. And last of all, right, as Professor Erki said, bringing ourselves from a fixed mindset to a growth mindset, right? Don't have any fixed view on life. Growth mindset means listen. Listen to the environment, listen to others, listen to yourself. And it again points to a sense of humility. You notice that the greater the people that you meet, the more humble they are. Humility is something that comes. So again, aren't we talking all about spirituality? It again comes back to the same thing, a service orientation, thinking about others first. Okay. So when we are talking about more innovation and more engineering, we are actually talking about empathy. We are talking about re-engineering our social transactions and connections and stuff like that. So it's really beautiful. We thought we were going to talk about innovation in the developing countries in this program, but what we've come up with is something quite exceptional, which is turning ourselves into more empathetic human beings to engage with the world, thinking of ourselves all in the journey together, reducing barriers between old and young. And gosh, this makes me feel like a priest standing at the pulpit. So Erki, I'm doing a job for you. I think Vinod wants to say something now.
I just wrote in the chat, Kavi, that Professor Kavi Arya and the e-Yantra team members are innovation evangelists.
Okay. Thank you. But I think we've shifted from innovation now a long time ago, right? So Erki, perhaps some words from you about this whole angle, this whole direction that the conversation has taken.
Yeah, thank you very much. And thank you very much also for supporting me in my work in digital theology, which basically for me translates to how you can express your faith, how you can elaborate your existential questions, empathy by digital tools. So it's kind of a design exercise. I mean, theology usually has been understood as kind of, a little bit like theoretical elaboration, but when we talk about digital theology, it's actually a question for designing, like for design, and I think that I was very happy that Prof. Kavi, you took this idea of serving, because if I think it from my faith point of view, from the point of Christianity, so I mean, leadership is about serving. It's not about dictating. It's not about top-down approach, but it's bottom-up. It's very much, and I hope that, and I actually just, a week ago, I submitted my manuscript on on the book on digital theology from computer science point of view. And one of the things that I wanted to emphasize was that this sort of approach is something like it's bringing us together. It's promoting understanding. It's promoting understanding not only at the level of knowledge or skills, but at existential questions, spirituality. And I really, again, I would just like to extend my gratitude to you for emphasizing that this really is important. So thanks for encouragement. I think that when we think of theological questions or interfaith dialogue, I did my master's thesis in theology on interfaith dialogue, and the theologian that I was studying, Horst Bürgle, had actually been working a lot in India, and he said that like the key for interfaith dialogue is to learn and listen to others, so that like their faith would work as a corrective to my faith, to remind what is important in my faith that I have actually already forgotten. One of the things that he particularly raised when it goes for India, so he said that the cosmic orientation, not only like universal or global, but cosmic orientation should also remind Christians that faith is so much bigger than just like our things in our location. It has like a cosmic dimension, and so that I think that's something like you are just reminding me in all your different aspects. And so thank you very much for being able to share and be part of this and continue to be part.
Thank you, Erki. Cheki, you have last word to say before we close?
I would like to thank Professor Kavi for giving me this wonderful opportunity, and would like to thank other team members, like especially the e-Yantra team members. And then, as always, I would wish to keep connected with all of you. And then, nice meeting you, Professor Erki. And again, Professor Menon, after so long, we had been meeting once again. And to the young engineers, I would like to suggest that at least if you are not able to do much things, I think it's better we have a habit of putting ourselves on the other's shoes. So that with this, I would once again would like to thank Professor Kavi for giving me this wonderful opportunity, and would wish to keep connected again with Professor Menon and Professor Erki again. So thank you.
Good. In fact, many of my colleagues have been saying we should host an event in Bhutan. Maybe at CST. What is your view on that, sir?
Actually, I'm ready. As I said, my doors are open, but the only thing is the COVID situation, though we have zero death as of now, but we are hoping that the border gets open very soon, and then things get normalized, because it's just now a control mechanism that's being operated.
So when the time comes, sir?
I'm not really sure.
Whenever it happens, we know that we have a very willing host in you. Thank you very much.
Yes, that's 100%. From my side, I'm open.
Thank you.
Yes.
And
Professor
welcome.
Erki, if you have time, also join us.
Yeah, thank you very, very much. I would be most happy. And just remember that Africa is not so far from India nor Bhutan, so feel welcome here as well.
Okay, thank you.
So I'd like to extend an invitation from our side at IIT Bombay also, that we'd love to host students from both Namibia and Bhutan, and if they engage with us through e-Yantra, even better. So thank you all very much. It's been a very educative session. Typically the program is 1 hour, but we've taken it to twice that amount, because I think the conversations were too precious to interrupt. And I'm sure that the students here would agree. It's very rare that we have computer science scientists speaking about empathy and civil engineers giving service, that kind of a mind share as we got from Professor Dorji. And we have, of course, Professor Menon here, who's very enthusiastically been supporting us through all the adventures at e-Yantra, and now he's holding the flag of disaster management in the innovation challenge which is happening at the moment. So his training is on at the moment. So thank you all very much. Thank you all to my team, the e-Yantra team, Suprabha, Aditya, who's on the console, Deepa, Ratin, and the others, and our young interns, Kavya, Tushant, Ritu, Kaustubh, and so on for joining us. Thank you all very much. Great to have you around. Good night and Jai Hind.
Good night. Bye.
Thank you.
Good night.
Bye.